All right. I believe we're live. What is up, everybody? This is Xbox 2+1. I'm your host, Randall Thor 19, the man with the million. We got Jez Corden, who forgot we were actually doing the show today.
I did. I've been so
managing
busy
editor.
today.
Windows
busy.
Central. I sent him a message. I'm like, hey, you know we have Xbox 2+1 today, and he's like, really? Yeah, but Jez has a terrible memory. But with us, we have the one and only Parris Lilly. Gamertag Radio fame, kind of funny fame. He's here, and we can't wait to talk with him. What's going on, buddy?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me on. I'm really looking forward to this. I always like talking to you and Jez. It's always a good time.
Yeah, and you know, you don't have to fight anybody else to talk. It's just Paris. This is Paris's time.
Yes.
Talk about whatever you want. And I thought it's always cool to get, like, we had you on a year ago after the showcase, because I was like, last year's showcase, people were really like, this is it. This has to be it. And it was like, all right, let's get on Paris to see what he has to say about this stuff. And I kind of wanted to continue the conversation. Like, okay, well, a lot's gone on in a year, Paris, since last year's showcase. Yeah. So much has gone on. And we'll talk about all this stuff. But first, we need to talk about the villain arc that you're on.
Villain arc.
We got to talk about this Paris villain arc.
Yeah, I want to know about the Paris villain arc.
Yeah, where would you like to begin?
I mean, what caused this villain arc of yours to happen?
So it's a couple things, and I guess people know at this point. So, Dreamcast guy, him and I had an in-person conversation about the way he puts out content, and he apologized to me in person about misrepresenting something that I said. And I asked him in person, hey, if that's what you do, that's what you do. Please just leave me out of it. That conversation continued, and he admitted how he doesn't necessarily believe everything that he puts out, right? Mm-hmm. And quote unquote, I have to play it up because it pays the bills.
Yes, the grifter angle.
Yeah. So then it was just a week before Summer Game Fest. And I didn't even know this at the time. He made another video with me in it and misconstrued something that I said. But that wasn't what started it. That just added fuel to the fire, because it started because I was on Kind of Funny and we were given our Xbox showcase predictions. And I boldly said it would be a 9.5, kind of gave my reasons why I thought it would be, tweeted about it, whatever, just having fun with it. And then he quote tweets me and said, LOL. Yep. And I'll admit that annoyed me, because I just went back to our conversation where I'm thinking, hey, I don't bother you. Don't bother me. We're good. So that kind of annoyed me. I know you jumped in and said something. I got involved
too, because I saw that conversation between you and him.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, I'm going to keep an open mind. And then he immediately tweets, the show's going to be at a 4 out of 10. And remember this tweet. And I'm just like, bro. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing? Like, I normally don't get involved on Twitter because Twitter's cesspool and it's better just not to. But I had to say something.
Yeah, and that's the thing. That's the thing, Rand. It's just I knew what he was saying was disingenuous. And then he when I said what I said, I was like, look, just don't misquote me, or you're gonna have to apologize to me, in person again, or whatever I said. And then his response again kind of doubled down on, not being genuine about what he was saying. So then that's when I said what I said. I was like, you don't even believe what you say. It's like, come on, dude. And then obviously it went, because I think, what did I say? I said, just all I'm saying is leave me out of your videos, because that's what I said to him in person. And then obviously, he blocked me and made a video anyways and accused me of being old and senile or whatever he said, which is fine. But the point remains that, along with, like you said, just the current state of social media, where people say the most outlandish things to you online, and then they're completely different in person.
Oh, yeah.
This isn't a me, or I'm a bully, or I'm threatening people. I don't do any of that. I'm a very nice guy. But I see the difference in people. And it's like, I am the same person online that I am in person. There's no difference.
I think you even said you intentionally went up to people at Summer Games Fest that
Yes.
had said some things to you or don't like you, and
Mm-hmm.
made sure to introduce yourself and stuff, and just to see their kind of expression on their face when that happened, like
yeah, and that's literally the villain arc for me. Whereas again, I wasn't being confrontational or anything crazy. Hey, how you doing? It's great to finally meet you in person, shake the hand, all that stuff. And it's like in my head, I'm like, I keep mental notes. I know the crazy things that you said to me online, but now it's all hugs and kisses in person. And it's just like, be who you are. If you don't like me online, don't like me in person, I guess is my thing. But no, I was just having fun with it. And like I said before, it's not like I was purposely being confrontational or malicious to anybody. I was just having fun with it because I love doing this. I love going to Summer Game Fest, seeing everybody there and having a good time. And even the people that I know think a certain way of me online, and just, hey, if that's how you feel, that's how you feel. We can have that conversation. But that's not what was happening. It was a lot of, oh, I really love the stuff that you do. You're doing a great job. I'm kind of funny, blah, blah, blah. I'm hearing all that BS, but I'm like, that's not what you said 6 months ago. It's just stuff like that. But it's like, whatever. I mean, I do this because I love to do it. My opinions are my opinions. I will never pretend that I'm right on things. Like, you and I even jokingly before we started, you were saying how there's things I'll say that people don't agree with. That's fine. I mean, I'm not sitting here acting like I'm the end all be all source of anything, but I am definitely genuine about what I think, for sure. And again, I don't know how deep you want to go into all this stuff, but there's things that I've said in years past about the industry that have changed now. And I think that's another weird thing that's been going on where people are trying to hold me accountable for something I said in 2020 when that was fact in 2020. I'll even just say this because this is what I'm talking about. When Xbox acquired Bethesda, and I famously said,
you had a famous line, very famous.
Yeah, you don't spend $7.5 billion to keep things the same. And I said some other stuff about that, so much so that Phil Spencer himself said something in public about that he wondered if I had a spy in one of their meetings or something. How do I know all of this? Because that was their plan. They were making things exclusive. They've obviously talked about it. That has since changed for various reasons. Okay. It was true then. It may not necessarily be true now, but they still didn't spend $7.5 billion to keep things the same, because the last time I checked, Starfield wasn't on PlayStation, and we don't know if it will, if it ever will. It might.
Yeah, but you do spend $80 billion to keep things the same, though.
No. I mean, to be fair, that's an evergreen statement. They don't spend that much money to keep things the same. What's changed is they're just not competing on Sony's terms anymore. Like, if they were to keep things the same, would be to go through and take the Sony approach, make things exclusive, and do all that kind of stuff. But they're not keeping these things the same because they've gone off script.
Right. Agreed. And Jez, that's part of it too, that I feel, again, we're just talking about the whole villain arc thing, just the way that social media is. It's okay. The plan that they had 3-4 years ago isn't the plan that they had today. If you can see that happening and talk about it from a reasonable, intelligent standpoint, that's not good enough. Now you're just following whatever PR says. You literally can't win in those things. They're mad at you when you say that stuff is going to be exclusive because that's what they were doing. And then when you say, well, it's not 100% exclusive anymore because of X, Y, and Z, now you're a hypocrite or a liar or this or that or whatever. But I've just learned that social media, people are going to say the most ridiculous things they possibly can. And you don't let that dissuade you from what your opinion is. If anything, I just double down on it. Yep. Okay. Well, that's what I think. Sorry, you don't agree. Keep it moving.
Yeah. Speaking of Summer Games Fest, do you think it's an adequate replacement for E3? Do you miss E3? Because I know you've been going for a while.
No.
You've been in a lot of them, and Jeff Keighley's kind of taken up the sword. But I don't know. As someone like watching from the outside in, it sort of feels... at least watching it doesn't feel the same, and I would imagine it probably isn't for you guys who actually go and behind the scenes play the stuff, right? It's not. Is it?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think Jez, I'd be curious to hear your opinion of this, because I know you've gone to E3 in the past as well. I don't miss E3 for what it became towards the end when they started letting the public in, and I'm not trying to say that in an arrogant way. It just made it too hard to get stuff done. Because lines were ridiculous. You're fighting through crowds. I was constantly late to appointments. I don't miss that. I like play days. It was way more like, this being the third year of them doing it. It was very organized. I was able to get the stuff on time, except Xbox. We can talk about that if you want. But for the most part, I was able to get the stuff on time, got the content that I needed, got hands-on with the games I wanted to play. So from a coverage standpoint, yeah, this is way better. But I do miss the glitz and the glam that was E3, you know, when going in that convention center and all the big booths and all that.
When I arrived at Summer Game Fest, I was like, is this the right place? Because they're basically like, they rented like this sort of downtown district of abandoned buildings for the show. I was like, I mean, this is great, but it's like, yeah, it's like E3 from home, right? And I appreciate like they've got to build it back up, right? They've got to make it work. It's incredibly expensive to put on these kind of shows, which is one of the contributing factors to E3 dying in the first place. You know, BlizzCon skipped this year as well, and part of that I know is because of how much it costs. I think they are going to bring it back next year, maybe. But all this stuff's astronomically expensive. But it is funny. It is funny, like how different the sort of the environment was, I suppose. It was like back streets, and I was thinking like they put murals up and stuff like that and posters, and I was thinking like, if coming out here at night, I'd be like afraid. There's like boarded up buildings and stuff like that. But yeah, they got to build back up, I guess. But
yeah, it's definitely not in the most desirable area of downtown Los Angeles, that's for sure.
No.
But yeah, from a coverage standpoint, I like this. It's smaller. It's easier to get access to everything, talk to people, do things like that. What E3 had become, I think, when was the public in? I think 2017, 2018, I think is when they started doing that.
I think it was 20...
I think it was 2017.
2018? Or
it was 2017.
Maybe 2017. I went in 2016.
Yeah.
I think I went the last year of what it was. And then, then they open it up to people. But so I did get to experience it one time.
Yeah,
it was a dream of mine, and because remember, Xbox was doing FanFest around that time.
Yep.
And anybody that kind of went to FanFest got into E3. So yeah, I honestly I do miss E3 because I miss the structure of it. I miss of like, okay, this day, Xbox has their show, and then the following day it would be PlayStation's, Ubisoft's, whatever and whatever, and the next day would be whatever. And all throughout the week you'd have all these stories popping up because everyone would be there playing the games, interviews, and I sort of miss that structure because everybody does their own stuff now. And it's just like Xbox is one day, Sony whatever, Nintendo whatever. Some people don't even do stuff. The news isn't as flown as it used to be. It makes E3 going away makes the video game industry seem smaller.
Yeah, I get that. It's like we lost our Academy Awards, kind of. I mean, it's that big industry event of the year, and I know that Keighley's trying to build up the Game Awards to be like that, but it's just not right now. I think they'll get there, but E3 was just on another level. But I also sort of like. Have you ever done Gamescom Paris?
Yeah, I went in 2019.
That is chaos. It's like,
oh yeah.
I mean, I love that there's like a business area where you can basically just hide there if you want, but whenever you step outside there, it's like E3 times 100. It's just so many people.
It's insane. Like because I went the one time in 2019, and to your point, the business area is where you could get stuff done. But I remember because what is it like? They have the media day like before it's open to the general public. So I got to go to the Xbox booth, check out the PlayStation booth, Ubisoft, all that. And then I just remember the next day just seeing the amount of human beings that are coming through. Yeah. It's insane.
I've been to like arena concerts with Slipknot and stuff, and Gamescom feels almost like that. It's just so many bodies in a scrum, squashed together, like COVID ground zero. Even though I got COVID from Summer Game Fest. Thanks, John Sick and Mechanica. Yeah. But,
did you get sick, Paris? Did you get sick at all? Because there was that flu going around. It seemed a lot of people got it.
Yeah, I saw a lot of people got COVID. People were getting sick, but no, I was fine. And matter of fact, I was hanging out with someone that had COVID like the entire time.
Interesting. So you mentioned you were late to some of the Xbox related.
So I bring in, and I'm sure Jez is going to chuckle out of this. So where Playdays is, and even Ubisoft isn't where Playdays is, but it's close enough that you could technically walk to it if you needed to in a reasonable amount of time. Like PlayStation was on site at Playdays as an example. Everybody was there except Xbox. And normally Xbox was down, at LA Live, right? Yeah. They decided this year to go to a new location, which is actually closer to Hollywood, where it was the Academy of whatever it's called, right? I forget the name.
Academy Awards Museum, up in Beverly Hills.
Right across the street from there is the Auto Museum, as an example. People in LA would know what I'm talking about. But so we go there, and it's LA, dude. So there's traffic, and it's not just as simple as, okay, I can quickly go back and forth. The other part of the problem was scheduling of appointments. Xbox was one of the last people to schedule appointments for stuff. So I had pretty much already planned out my whole Summer Game Fest appointments before Xbox. And then the Xbox is coming in saying, hey, we got appointments for this. They had a couple that were actually at Playdays, which was replaced in Stalker 2. But then all their behind closed door stuff was after the showcase on site. Ironically enough, I had booked PlayStation during that time period. So it was impossible for me to get from there back over to downtown LA. So I missed my PlayStation appointments. Thankfully, PlayStation worked with me and I got in the next day. Same with some Ubisoft stuff I had. But yeah, that just kind of screwed things up. And I already know now because I've talked to a few people. I'm not the only one that had that issue. So, they took the note. I love the facility. I love what they did, the showcase, the mixer, all those things. It was a great venue, but just logistics didn't work for appointment stuff. So
I did speak to Microsoft about that, because it cost me $80 to get from one side of the town to the other for the events. And I think they're going to coordinate a little bit more next year, maybe.
Yeah, they'll just have to coordinate it more and get their appointments out earlier so people can make sure they're not double booking, for that stuff. Because I went behind closed doors for with the coalition to talk about Gears of War E-Day. I went hands-on with Flintlock. I went hands-on with Age of Mythology. And I sat down for a discussion about AI. So I was doing all that right after the showcase. And then, there's no way I was going to get back to Playdays because of that. So they'll just have to take the feedback and coordinate it better next year.
Yeah. We do have a question in chat, and I bring it up because you mentioned you're going behind the scenes playing these games. Here's a game you didn't play. And Yeet Miser says, the king of the Banjo Bros arrives. Paris, please explain to people why Banjo matters. There's a whole episode about the drought. Some Xbox fans may not want it, but so many do.
So let me say this first, since we're bringing this up. I had a very good source at Xbox preemptively come to me and say, "There's no Banjo.
There's no Banjo.
I want to set your expectations now. There's no Banjo." I was like, "All right." But why is it important? Here's why. I went hands-on with Astrobot. At Playdays. Xbox does not have an equivalent of that. That game is going to compete with the 3D Marios. That's how good that was. They have an IP that is sitting right there that if you utilize it correctly, and I've heard all the feedback, it doesn't sell well, it's not relevant anymore, blah, blah, blah. How do you know until you try? That's the way I look at it. Where's their family-friendly mascot? They don't have one. And they continue to not have one. Now, Phil didn't didn't help things by saying, "Hey, Banjo fans, we hear you." I specifically, I got tagged a lot in that one.
We hear you, but we don't care.
yeah, that's what it sounds like. So, I mean, my guess is there will eventually be a Banjo-Kazooie game. I just can't imagine that they won't do it. Is it already in works and all that? I have no idea. No one's hinted to me, said anything.
It's not.
But there you go.
Yeah, Jazz is very much of the opinion it will never come. You'll never get a new one.
I mean, I don't know, never. I don't know if never, but I can tell you right now, categorically, there is no Banjo game in development as of this podcast on the 26th of June, 2024. There is no Banjo game in development right now.
And I definitely believe that. I can feel that. My only thing is they keep selling Banjo merch. They keep that IP's name in our thoughts, right? Because we keep seeing it. So just make a game. just make it. I don't know. Just come on. I don't know. And I get it might be selfish on my part. I'm sure they've looked at the numbers and they've seen the interest. Maybe it's just simply not there on a scale that it would be a good return on investment. I mean, I don't know. I'll say this. They need to figure out something that is more family friendly, because I just don't think they have enough of that right now.
Maybe it's whatever Toys for Bob is working on.
Could be. Very well could be.
I was told that Minecraft is doing more than double the amount of traffic on Xbox than the number 2 game is right now.
In regards to family stuff, family friendly.
No, just in general. Minecraft is the number 1 most played game on Xbox right now. I hear this information, and it makes me wonder like how accurate those most popular game lists are. But we also only see them per region. But Minecraft is like absolutely still huge. And the Tricky Trials update or wherever it did made it blow up, and there's a bunch of 15th anniversary stuff. And I really think like Minecraft is a crux when it comes to these discussions, because Microsoft internally, they can always just say, well, we could fund a Banjo, or we could give that budget to Mojang, because all kids plays Minecraft, Roblox, etc. I don't know, but I tend to agree with you that, you know, like all the platform holders, and we constantly hear this narrative that kids don't want consoles. They don't care about the platform. They just care about the games. And that's fine. But like, I would push back that, well, I'm sure Nintendo, kids growing up playing Nintendo games do care about the platform. And they do associate those experiences with Nintendo. And that makes that sort of like, it's an investment for the future, because those kids will grow up to be Nintendo adults in the same way, like, you know, you get your Disney adults and stuff like that, right? I think Microsoft really underestimates the power of getting them when they're young, you know. And there's a dark joke with Dr. Disrespect.
Oh, jeez, Jez. He went there. Wow.
Getting them when they're young.
He really did. God. He really did.
My brain was like, I can't believe he just said that. But yeah, there is something to be said there, I think, about getting kids loyal to your brand and your platform through the medium of games. Minecraft's everywhere, so that's not doing anything for Xbox, the fact that it's everywhere. And then it comes back to the exclusive discussion and blah 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 blah. You know, it's
I mean, I guess that's kind of my thing when I hear the Minecraft discussion, and I don't deny its huge popularity. You know, my kids play it all the time, but you don't associate that IP with Xbox.
No.
And I don't think anyone ever really has. And I think that's kind of what I'm saying. You want something that when you see it, it makes you think of Xbox. Mm-hmm. And that's what I think Banjo could be, even though Banjo obviously started on a Nintendo platform. I just feel like give it a shot. Why not? I think it could work. And when was Nuts and Bolts? 2008? So it's almost 20 years. It's crazy.
It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Here's what I think you should do with Banjo. Make it for adults. Make it difficult as fuck. And make it hardcore. Make it for adults, right? And then, like, you know, because I think, like, people underestimate, or make it playable with a kid. So, like, what you could do is you could have, like, the hard bit, the Banjo, right? And this is my pitch to Microsoft. You can use this royalty-free, Microsoft. You have Banjo, the playable character, right? And the game's hard. The platforming's hard, all that stuff. And then Kazooie, you could have that on player 2 as the little kid, and the little kid can control something as well, like, I don't know, drinking a health potion, or the little kid can contribute and play with their adult co-pilot partner. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's what the original games were like, come to think of it. Maybe I've just designed the original game. I never played fucking Banjo, because even when I was a kid, I was obsessed with games where you could murder things. More combat, Grand Theft Auto. I was ruined from a young age, basically. But you know, for kids with a normal upbringing, these games like the Nintendo games, the Mario games, you know, and Astrobot maybe now, I think those are going to be like, Microsoft's going to be kicking themselves maybe, or maybe they won't be because they'll just be on that COD train forever. I don't know. But yeah, like Has No Pants in chat says, Banjo Souls. What if Banjo was a Souls-like? That's how you get.
I don't want that. I don't want that.
I don't think anybody wants that.
Yeah.
Hopefully the Banjo Bros gets their game at some point, but
Banjo
it might be a long way away. You know, we mentioned Gamescom, and I put you in my video, Paris.
Yeah.
Because you had said something on a forum that you know, hey, like, you know, this year's Gamescom could be hype worthy. Xbox then came out and said they're having their biggest booth ever. They're doing a lot of things because they could have shown more at this past showcase. What are you looking forward to from Xbox at Gamescom?
I have a feeling you're going to see more hands-on of things that they already showed at this preview. Like Avowed, as an example, I could see some limited hands-on of that. I would imagine Towerborn is probably playable there as well, right? Maybe we do finally, and I know, you know, they listed out obviously some of the games that were going to be there, but I think more hands-on of these things will probably get more solid release dates around that time. I would imagine, again, Avowed as the example, Indiana Jones as another example. There'll probably be a couple more surprises of games that haven't been announced yet, that they'll potentially could show or tease at Gamescom. And I'll just simply say, because you brought up the forum post that I made, it was funny. I didn't think that was even a big deal when I did it, because again, I was proudly peacocking around about, I told y'all that showcase was going to be right. It was going to be
9.5, and you were like, it's going to be a 9.5, and that was a 10. You know?
But the reason I even said that was because during the Summer Game Fest, I talked to 3 different people I know at Xbox, and it was just casual conversations, but they were just saying, yeah, this showcase, there's things that could have been here that we left out, and we're already in full prep for Gamescom, and it's shaping up to be probably the biggest one we've ever done, right? I mean, literally the same exact conversation with 3 people unprompted. So that's why I said what I said. And then obviously they went ahead and just confirmed it last week, that biggest booth, all that. And we've seen some of the games. So I look at it this way. You have all these studios, you have all these IPs that you have in various levels of production right now in development. Here's one thing I'll say. Matt Booty needs, not that he isn't already earning the big bucks that he's making, but this is when he earns the big bucks that he's making, because now you have to manage all of this and properly figure out release windows for this stuff and not cannibalize the games that you have by having them come out, you know, on top of each other, things like that. It does seem like we're getting to that point now. And I just always keep in the back of my head what Phil Spencer said when we interviewed him last year. You know, and he obviously was not in the greatest of moods when he did that interview. But the one thing that he was saying was, it was like, I can see it. I can see where it all there. It's right there. But until you actually start seeing these things happen, you can't believe anything that I'm saying. That's what the showcase was for me. And I think Gamescom is probably going to be an extension of that, where now you're starting to see, oh man, they got a lot of stuff that's coming out. And as long as it comes out quality and on time, this is the whole point of Game Pass and all this stuff, right? Everything that they've been trying to sell us over the past few years. So yeah, I think they're in a good spot. I do.
Yeah, we had David Jaffe on last week for Xbox 2+1, and he's not the biggest fan of the booty, you know, not the biggest fan of Mr. Matt Booty. He does. I mean, you look at Matt Booty now, and man, he's got a lot of power. He oversees it all, Paris. Xbox Game
really
Studios,
does.
Activision, Bethesda. Now, the marketing team, some of the marketing teams are now underneath Matt. Because, Jarrett West left. And it's like, just this year, with the games that are releasing at the end of the year, it seems like another shotgun blast for Xbox, which is something we always complain about. It's like Xbox always forgets that the rest of the year, it's like they forget January through August exists, right? Because you look at what's coming out the rest of the year, and it's like you have Age of Mythology and Our History Untold in September, and you have Microsoft Flight Sim and Avowed in November, and Indiana Jones in December, and there's a lot of games in a short period of time. And this is something I don't know if you heard the discussion we had on Xbox 2 the other week, but we brought up Avowed, right? Here's Avowed coming from one of Xbox's best developers. I don't know. Would you agree with that? Obsidian being one of their better developers?
I have been on record for many years saying that when we look back, Obsidian might be the most important acquisition that they've ever made.
Yeah, so you have Obsidian. They're coming out with Avowed, which is a game revealed in 2020. In fact, when they revealed it, I think they said that was the game that was the game they purchased them for, or the game they really wanted to make. It's finally coming out. It's looking better and better every time they show it. And the rumored release date is like November 12th. That was put out there by Obsidian, then deleted. And me and Jess had this conversation. It's like, well, what do you do? Because Assassin's Creed Shadows is November 15th. I think Assassin's Creed Shadows will completely overshadow, pun intended, Avowed. And it's like, well, do you want Avowed to be able to stand on its own? You got to move it from Assassin's Creed Shadows, right? Like, where would you move it to? Because it just kind of seems like at that point, you're almost kind of sending it out to die, quote unquote. It's like, well, because after Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed Shadows is going to be, the second biggest game of the fall. And it's like, man, I want Avowed to do well. I want people to play it. But, if Assassin's Creed is there, they may not. But it's like, well, where do you move it? It's like, we can't move it the following week because you got Microsoft Flight Sim. You can't move it to December because Indiana Jones is there. You can't really move it too far up because Call of Duty's there. And it kind of goes into the thing you're talking about, release dates and games bunching up against each other. And Dave Jaffe had an interesting take on it. He basically said that maybe you don't really worry about that because you have all these people coming into Game Pass for Call of Duty, and that maybe they need a game in the following month to just like, okay, we're not going to churn, so here's Avowed, and then, here's Indiana Jones. What do you think about that situation where you have a game that's being worked on for a while? Avowed has always kind of been talked about as, a bigger Xbox exclusive, but it might be coming out against an even bigger game that could potentially kneecap it.
I'm actually glad that you asked me this because I've been trying to, in my head, figure out what the release window is going to look like for Avowed, Indiana Jones, all that. You brought up Flight Sim and you were saying to not put it out that same week. I think that's the week you do it for Avowed.
Do you double up on it then?
Those are two different genres. I mean, the people that are excited about Flight Sim aren't necessarily going to be excited about Avowed and vice versa, right? I'm more curious about Indiana Jones personally. Okay. Because I think December's too late. I know that's been the rumor for a while. I feel like you want that out prior to the cutoff of Keighley and the Game Awards. I don't think you want that to come out after or not be eligible to be nominated for anything. So that one fascinates me where that fits in. And I know they didn't put a date on Shattered Space for Starfield. I know a lot of people seem to think that'll be September, which makes sense. But you definitely want to give yourself room around not only Call of Duty, but Assassin's Creed. And don't forget Dragon Age as well.
That's why I think they didn't date Starfield, because they're probably not sure when Dragon Age is coming yet. And I think Xbox has the marketing for Dragon Age.
They do.
So it's like, okay, if Dragon Age is coming out in September, which maybe it will, well, maybe we don't want to launch our Starfield DLC or expansion at that same point, so we need to hold off. Now that you have all these games, you have to worry about all these things.
And Stalker's the beginning of September.
Yeah. And Stalker's the beginning, as well as Age of Mythology Retold is also right there. This is sort of this is sort of the problem when everything gets backed up to the end of the year. You had the whole rest of the year to give out a game, and we got Hellblade, which I really liked. Jez, not Jez's game. What did you end up thinking about Hellblade?
Definitely not my game.
Yeah, definitely not your game. Did you end up liking Hellblade 2? Jez's whole thing was that he wished it was more. He basically wants a God of War clone. Essentially.
My thoughts on it have evolved since then. I'll let Parris go first, though.
No, I was just simply going to say I wound up giving it like an 8 out of 10. I enjoyed my time with it. I was surprised, and they told us this ahead of time, but I was surprised that it wasn't longer. But then I kind of feel like for what the game was, it would have overstayed its welcome if it was longer than that. I think clearly a visual showcase, clearly an audio showcase, lacking in gameplay. The gameplay could have been more. The puzzles were way too simple. That was kind of my critiques on it. Yeah. In a nutshell, that's pretty much my thoughts on it.
You said your thoughts have evolved?
I actually think it's a bad game.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
I kind of this is Jaffe's fault, maybe. But Jaffe made a great point on Xbox 2+1 where he was just like, and this was his game developer producer perspective, is that like the first hour you do nothing but walk slowly across a landscape, and it's a very pretty landscape. But it made me realize that like I gave Hellblade a lot of slack because it's like, oh, it's only a walking simulator. Walking simulator is not for me, whatever. But then I realized there are walking simulators that are so much better at like sort of production delivery than Hellblade 2 is. Like Life is Strange and The Walking Dead and all these other games. They don't make you walk blindly in a line for the first 30 to 40 minutes of the game and then hit you with a boring ass icon puzzle or wherever it was. I really think they think more about like we want to make something artistic rather than we want to make something enjoyable. And that's great, if that's what you want to do, it's great, but I'm not going to pretend it makes it a good game. I'm actually annoyed about it now.
Oh my god.
They're a good tech studio, but I don't think they're good at making games.
You don't think they're good at making games?
Mm-mm.
Devil May Cry reboot, Enslaved Odyssey of the West.
Never played that.
It's a million years ago.
Devil May Cry was a million years ago. And also, I enjoyed Bleeding Edge. Bleeding Edge was alright, but I don't think you put so much effort and budget into making Hellblade 2. It just doesn't seem like a good idea to me. I don't know.
Well, I mean, you could always... Okay, Parris, let me ask you this question. We both played Hellblade 2. I think I liked it more than you. You look at the reports, okay, out of the EU, that it wasn't even the top 100 best-selling games, although why would it be? Because it's Game Pass. It didn't seem to really do well on PC, on Steam. I get you can make the argument that maybe there's not an audience for Hellblade. Period. End of story. Maybe people didn't want a sequel. So if you're Ninja Theory and you see the reception to what the game you made, what do you do next? Do you do a Hellblade 3? Because they certainly, after the ending of the game, you can go in that direction. You can make another one.
Mm-hmm.
But you already know how people feel about Hellblade 2. Do you do something else? Like, what would if they came to you and they're like, Don Matthews came to you, studio head, Parris, your choice here matters. We're in a dilemma. We got Project Mara we're working on, but it's a kind of small thing. Our next big game, we're thinking between doing a new IP, something different, or Hellblade 3. And whatever you say is what goes. What do you think? What would you tell them they need to do?
I would do the new IP.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would say, get away from the walking sim stuff. Why don't you go back and explore your DMC enslaved roots? Kind of, make it more of a game.
Exactly. Because you would assume that you're not going to just make something similar to Hellblade in a different skin. You would think they would want to stretch their creative legs and try something different. So yeah, I would shoot for the new IP, get some distance from Hellblade 2, but I would absolutely want to return to it at a certain point. But yeah, I would think in the interim, the next game I would do, I would do something brand new.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how the studios come up with what they want to work on, but there's a part of me that thinks there just isn't a lot of interest in Hellblade. Period. I don't really know.
I love it's so frustrating. Sorry, go on.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Other than to say, I push back on that one because I feel like, and I've said this a million times, it was the first thing that you saw when they introduced this next generation.
Yep.
I do think there should have been more anticipation for it. Clearly, they knew what the game was. This is why we saw the limited marketing for it, because I think if they wanted more awareness of Hellblade 2, they easily could have done that. But they knew it was a shorter experience. They made it digital only. It was sold at a discount. Obviously, it was on Game Pass as well. I just think they felt like for as short as this game was, it was not going to have the big AAA impact that it would need. So as a result, I don't want to say it was sent out to die, but it was not sent out in a way to have huge success, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a shame because I really like Ninja Theory. I love most of their games except for what was the one game, Bleeding Edge? I really liked them all.
That. Like I like Bleeding
Edge. I didn't care for Bleeding Edge, and I do like Hellblade, and I love the combat in that game, even though it's very cinematic. Like there was just something really there was just something so visceral about that combat that I really enjoyed, even though it was one-on-one and there wasn't a lot of it. And it's like, all right, well, let's see what you can do maybe outside of that, like, you know, outside of that franchise.
Maybe I'm being too harsh on it. I need to actually go through and finish it, but
you never will.
No, but like,
you never will.
It's just annoying. Like we're living in an age where everyone's, or at least, you know, a lot of people's attention span is completely fried by TikTok and social media. And they really want to make me walk for 30 minutes doing nothing when they open the game. That just does not feel like intelligent design. It feels like, it almost feels like self-indulgent.
I mean, it's sort of the same way the first game opens.
Yeah, exactly. And
first game's nothing but walking.
Did that blow the world up?
I mean, I don't know. People really seem to love that game. Granted, like the reviews are similar. I'm saying the reviews are similar, but there was more positivity regarding Hellblade 1.
I think people were married to the idea of, oh, this could do something more. But then now we've realized that they don't want to do something more. This is what they want to do. They don't want to add combat. They don't want to like make it more interesting or add more interesting puzzles and stuff. And now I will say, like, this is A, their COVID game, and B, this is their first game after integration, and C, their first game after having a new studio built from scratch, right? So there are some mitigating factors here. And I think, like, when we see State of Decay 3 drop, that'll be an example of, like, okay, this is how the studio has grown and developed after, you know, COVID and having the studio grown, and now they know how to integrate with Microsoft better and all that kind of stuff. So, like, I want to believe on some level that maybe the next game from them would be a bit more, I don't know how to say without being harsh, but much more of an actual game and less of a, like, oh, we just want to make movies in Unreal Engine. But I don't know. I'll go back and do it properly. But the intro really left a sour taste.
I don't think you will. But
the moment I got to that puzzle with the fucking runes, I was like, nope, I'm out. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean the puzzles are they are what they are. But I wanted to talk about the showcase with you, Paris.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
you predicted it 9.5 on Kind of Funny, and it basically came in exactly what you were what you thought it would be. Like, give me the rundown of, you know, you're watching it at the theater with everybody else as part of the FanFest media stuff. And, you know, any of the standouts for you?
So I have to say where I was sitting, because I just thought this was hilarious when I saw it. So I was sitting up there. There was a bunch of devs and other Xbox people that were around where we were. Tim Schafer was sitting like right behind me, you know, and I've interviewed Tim Schafer or whatever. I don't like to bother people. He was doing his thing. I'm not going to bother him. He literally tweets out after how I ignored him.
Ooh.
Okay. That was the funniest thing ever. And I was like, I didn't want to bother you. But, so we're all sitting there. This is myself, Danny, Khalif, all the ladies from What's Good Games. My nemesis, Britt, her and I sat next to each other. She tormented me.
Yeah, what's with Banjo. That? Because of Resident Evil and all that. Like, you don't like Resident Evil, and
you don't like Resident Evil.
He doesn't like Resident Evil.
No. It's not even that I dislike it. I actually went and just played 4. It's not that I dislike it. I just mess with her about, because she's like the Resident Evil super fan, right? She hosted that event, all that, did an amazing job. I just give her grief about, you love a franchise that all they do is keep remaking the same damn game over and over for 25 years. So that just turned into a back and forth where she's like, at least I'm a fan. Yeah, she's like, but at least I'm a fan of an IP that still exists. So we just go back and forth. She gave me, I don't know if you saw the picture, at the show, she waited till we're sitting at the showcase. She gave me a miniature banjo. She goes, this is the only banjo you'll be getting today. It was the funniest thing ever. I loved it.
That's good.
Yeah. But going to your point about the showcase. So, we're all seated there. We're watching it. And I thought they opened it the right way. They got the comfort food out of the way, which was Call of Duty and the new Doom game. Because those are games we know they're going to be good. There's nothing to, they are what they are, right? You either love them or you don't. So you kind of got those out of the way. And then I felt everything they showed after that were things that we needed to see or we had questions about. We got to see South of Midnight with gameplay. Good. State of Decay 3, while it wasn't really gameplay, to kind of see the vision for where they're going with it, I appreciate it. Wish we'd have got more gameplay, but I thought that was fine. Especially with all the rumors and stuff we've heard about Undead
over the years. Strongly representative of the gameplay.
And I was like, and I was okay with it because it was like, oh, we're probably going to see it next year because it's probably not coming out to 2026, right?
Yeah. Yep.
But Jizz says he's heard it could be next year.
I don't think so. And that's what this guy
Jez Corden, Windows Central said.
But see, it goes back to what we were just talking about before about Matt Booty and trying to juggle all this stuff.
Exactly.
2025 already looks so stacked for them.
It does.
Where the hell are you fitting it in?
That's why like Towerborn didn't show up at the show. And it was one of those things where it's like, oh, Towerborn must be getting delayed, right? Or must be maybe coming out at the beginning of next year. And then they still tweet out like, no, we'll be at Gamescom and we're still releasing this year. And I'm kind of like, do you need to? Like, where would you even release? Right? Like, you already know the games in September and October and November and December. Like, at that point, it's like, would it be better just to hold off Towerborn and put it out in January or February so there's a game at the beginning of the year? Do you need another game stuck? Like, let's just say it's August, or maybe it's not, it probably wouldn't be August, but October, like the beginning of October or something. Is it just, do you just throw it at the wall and put it out there just because it's ready and because whatever? And I don't know.
I'm with you on that. And believe it or not, because I mentioned to say this before when we were talking about it, I think you should hold Avowed until January personally.
I agree with that. I think we talked about that on the show.
Yeah,
I was thinking you should. I was thinking you should hold Indiana Jones to January or March.
But see, and that'll go, and either one is fine in my opinion. But I think getting Indy out, here's what I think, why I keep saying Indy, you get it out before the Game Awards so it's eligible. Troy Baker would get a nomination for his performance.
Yeah, you're right.
And I'm sure they want that goodwill of talking about an Xbox game, during that show. Whereas Avowed, maybe not gets nominated for Best RPG. We'll obviously see when we get hands-on with it. But that would be a strong kicking off the year title for them if they were to hold it to January.
But the Xbox tax, Paris.
Oh my God, don't get me started on that.
The Xbox tax. So back to the showcase. You mentioned South of Midnight, which I was completely shocked by.
Yeah, strong showing for that.
Because I was a compulsion hater, bro. I'm a compulsion. I told Phil one year, I don't know why you bought compulsion. At least said that to him. And I've joked around on the show, like we must have been able to get them for a hot dog and a sandwich and a Coke or something, because their previous 2 games aren't very good. And it's like, I don't know what you see in them. Like the other ones all make sense to me. That one doesn't. But then seeing that game, I was like, all right, like prove me wrong. Hell yeah. You know, like it looks really cool.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the critique that I would bring out, and I know they've come out and kind of clarified it since, was the actual combat we saw was gated and enclosed in a small area. Mm-hmm. But then they said that's a common enemy. So I was like, okay, well, obviously we need to see more. They obviously got plenty of time to show more combat in the game. But the vibe that they're going for, the Southern mythology that they're using, the art style, I mean, the music in it, I connected with all of that. I thought it was great.
Yeah. And anything else from the showcase kind of stand out to you?
I mean, yeah, plenty.
I know because I kind of had the aside about Towerborn and the release date, but
no, my biggest thing to come out of that was Perfect Dark. Of everything, that was the one that needed to show as well as it did, because there was so much doubt and speculation and doom and gloom about what the initiative was doing with Crystal Dynamics. For it to now debut that way with extended gameplay, visuals obviously look fantastic. It is a cross between like a Mirror's Edge and a Deus Ex. I thought that showed very well for them, to the point where now, and you got to assume this is also a 2026 title. Oh yeah, sign me up for this. I'm looking forward to it.
That's what I was thinking. I said the same thing to Jez. I was like, you know, your 2025 titles. You got South of Midnight, you got Doom Eternal, Doom the Dark Ages, and Fable. And then the ones that didn't have a date, State of Decay 3, Perfect Dark, and Gears E-Day. I'm like, that's your 2026 games. You know?
I'm curious what you guys think of the mission structure in that game, though. Because
Perfect Dark?
I never played the original, right? And you guys are both much, much older than me. So, so I just wonder, like, because the mission structure sounds like it's mission based. It's not open world or anything like that.
Good.
Oh,
yeah, good.
You okay?
So you're okay with that? Yeah. I just ran into a boss.
Yeah, I'm perfectly okay with that.
Man,
not everything needs to be an open world, and I think a mission structure where it's like you go to an area and it's like Hitman, I guess, where you load up a level. And there's many different ways you can potentially attack it. You can attack it head on with weapons, maybe go loud, or, you know, do your Sam Fisher, Joanna Dark, where it's stealthy using gadgets to get in. Like, you can imagine so many different ways about attacking an objective. Like, that is kind of what I want from that game. And I don't have any previous nostalgia about Perfect Dark. I didn't play the original, and I only played a little bit of the multiplayer in Perfect Dark Zero, so I have no clue about the story in any of these things. I do think aliens are involved.
Yes.
But other than that, I don't know much about it. And I'm waiting for Sam Fisher to come back.
Oh my God, don't get me started on that.
Hopefully he will. It's just like, good. You know, watching that trailer, I was like, oh, I'm getting Deus Ex vibes. I'm getting Immersive Sin vibes. I'm getting Prey vibes a little bit. And it's like, we don't get games like that a lot anymore. So I agree with you, Paris. Like, that was the game that probably needed to show up and show out, because it had been a while, and there were the rumors that it was in development hell. Previously. So it was like, okay, and I don't know about you, but sometimes I like to watch people's reactions to stuff. And so I'd be watching people's reactions, and everybody was like, oh man, this looks really cool. This was the first time in a while where people on the internet really seem to enjoy almost everything about the Xbox show. From people who normally don't care about Xbox, who are very much like, you know.
I noticed there was a lot of people praising it through gritted teeth.
Yeah. They made that show, they did such a great job with that presentation. Again, I always got to give love to Tina Meany and that team. I think since she's joined, you can see the production value of these events have just gone up. But they made it undeniable. It's like if you're criticizing it, you're literally nitpicking. Because I think the biggest nitpick wasn't more firm release dates or windows on things. To me, that was probably the biggest criticism that you had. But the games that they showed very well. There's probably only a couple games out of all of them they showed that I was kind of not for me. And ironically enough, one of them was Dragon Age. But then the next day I went to the 45-minute demo and I'm like, why in the hell didn't they show this? This looks great. You know, so I just think they did a great job. I do want to circle back on something you were talking about just a second ago. Games that didn't show up that I was disappointed because you mentioned Splinter Cell. Obviously, Banjo would have been one for me. Splinter Cell would probably be number 2. My 3 and 4, Judas from Ken Levine, because I thought we were going to see it, and BioShock. 2K literally teased we were going to see something at Summer Game Fest from a beloved franchise, or however they phrased it, that screamed BioShock, and then they didn't show anything.
No, they did show some. You got Civ 7.
No, yeah, you're right. Gosh darn it. I want it, but that's not what I wanted to see.
I know, I'm the same way, because I was like, Mafia, BioShock. There's so many things in the 2K arsenal that you could say, and then they come out with Civilization 7, which is like, okay, Borderlands 4, you know, now that they're with them. But yeah, Judas, hey, BioShock in space, sign me up. A new BioShock? Although I'm a little bit more iffy on that one. That one seems like it's been going on for a bit, and who knows if it'll really ever come out. But what about Fable? I thought it showed well. I mean, you know, again, it's similar to State of Decay 3, where it really wasn't gameplay that we got to see. I mean, they said at the very bottom, in-game footage, Paris.
There's a difference between in-game footage and gameplay, I guess is my thing. But it presented fine. It feels like a Fable game, like something that you would get from Fable, and obviously visually it looks fantastic. So you would imagine that's probably the big holiday 2025 title for them. So I'm sure. Think so. Yeah. I would guess either they'll do a big dev direct for it early next year, like they have been, or that'll be your dev direct after the showcase next year, where we really get a big deep dive into Fable. One of the two. I'm leaning more towards a showcase. That would make sense, since that would probably be the big game in 2025 for them, where they'll hold that to after the showcase. Yeah.
Doom Dark Ages releases before the showcase or after the showcase?
I'm gonna say before.
Yeah, I think both Doom 2016 and Doom Eternal released before June. I want to say they both released in March, maybe May. Because I know Doom Eternal launched in March because it was basically COVID started right when that happened. So yeah, I kind of agree with you on that one. But you could run a developer direct in January, with a lineup of Fable, Doom: The Dark Ages, South of Midnight, and Clockwork Revolution.
Now, okay, it's funny you bring up Clockwork Revolution. I have a theory.
Okay, hit me.
That game is a lot further off than we think.
Really?
Like, I think that might be a 2027 title.
Ooh.
Because, and here's why, and I know we're kind of going down the list, but I'll skip ahead to just say, I think we're all agreeing here, Perfect Dark is probably 2026.
Yes.
Gears of War E-Day just makes sense to be your big holiday 2026 title.
Yeah, maybe even your launch title for your new console, perhaps, handheld?
That's where I was going. That's exactly where I was going. I think you could hold off Clockwork Revolution to the year after that. This is, again, where they're starting to, if they truly are having all these IPs and they're building it up, you don't need Clockwork Revolution in 2026. That could be a 2027 game for you.
There was
along with Blade.
There was, I know they're the masters of social media, the NXile team.
Yeah.
There was a voice actor who had put in their thing that Clockwork Revolution was coming in 2025, which they had a funny reply for on Twitter.
Oh, I missed that.
You didn't see that?
No,
you didn't see the little meme that in it did? Oh, it was the meme from Umbrella Academy, where it was like the girl driving in the car looking, and then the dude driving the car looking, and they both are looking at each other.
Oh, I just found it because I just went to the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, that's great. A voice actor making up a release date for their IMDb. That's great.
Just trying to figure out when our game releases.
Oh, that's good.
That was funny.
See, I don't know. You could be right. I was just thinking Clockwork. I was thinking Clockwork Revolution was earlier than that, so that's why I put it in the developer direct. Like, okay, Clockwork Revolution's next year, but maybe it's not. What was the feeling and the reaction inside the theater, but also your own reaction to, hey, this isn't Gears 6, and it's certainly not a Gears collection, but we're going all the way back. We're going back in before the beginning, and we're bringing back Marcus and Dom, and we're doing Emergence Day. How's that?
So, and I'll tell the story after, but so I know someone that's heavily involved with Gears, right? Okay. So it was funny having a conversation with this person before the showcase and then having a conversation with them after. And I'll circle back to that. So as we're sitting there, worst kept secret ever, we all knew we were getting some Gears related, right? I had already figured it's closing the show. So when it was coming up, I was like, all right, here we go. And I'm looking and I go, man, Marcus is looking kind of young. Like that was my thought, right? And then, when the hand comes, I go, no. And it pulls up. I go, oh my God, it's Dom. We're going back. Like, it was my immediate thought. And then when they said E-Day, I mean, that crowd, everybody just erupted. They loved it. And it's because I know, and I found the tweet I had put out in 2022. I damn near called this because I was even saying, I want to see Emergence Day. I want them to lean more into the horror aspects of the original Gears of War. And I want to see Emergence Day. And then being able to talk to the coalition after they confirmed, and I know, Jez, you guys had that same article in Windows Central, but she confirmed it when we talked to her, saying, oh yeah, we're leaning back into the horror aspects of this, and we want to tell that story of Emergence Day from the perspective of, this is the first time that you're seeing these monsters come out of the ground, and how do you react to that? And, Sarah isn't complete, or is Sarah, is that the name of the planet? I might be screwing it up, but
Sarah, yeah,
isn't completely destroyed, all that. So you're going to see all that destruction and everything happen in Emergence Day. So I'm like, yeah, I'm all for that. But it was funny. Like I said, the person that I know was very excited to know what my reaction was going to be after I see everything in the showcase. And then this person told me how happy they were that it didn't leak. That it was a genuine surprise for everyone. Yeah. That everyone knew there was something, like this person said, keep saying Gear 6. The whole time I was like, just keep saying Gear 6, keep saying Gear 6. That's what we want everyone thinking, Gear 6. And then when you find out it's Emergence Day, it's a huge surprise. So yeah, that was great. I mean, that was a great way to close that show by doing that, because it's something everybody wants. So people were genuinely excited about it, because I know I was.
That's that nostalgia. People got nostalgia for Dom and Marcus.
I told the coalition in my interview, I was like, I had most of the show, but I had no idea about this. So this is truly, they kept that under wraps really well. I suppose being in Canada probably helps. But
yeah.
But
I got to ask you this question, Paris.
Sure.
Oh, I know it's coming.
Oh, it's coming, and I'm sure Paris knows it's coming too, because I actually talked to him when I mentioned this on Xbox 2. He DM'd me. We were going back and forth. We asked David Jaffe this, and when I said this to Jez didn't like it. In fact, he put up a poll.
I was mad, actually.
And the poll wasn't as lopsided as you would think. It was 60-40. And I said, if Gears E-Day is successful, they're never going to go back to Gear 6. You never see that storyline conclude. Because why would they go back? And Jez was so angry, put out the tweet, and it was 60-40 that, was basically in favor of, no, they'll go back. But it was 40% are like, I don't care if they ever go back. And David Jaffe kind of agreed with me. He was like, yeah, why would they go back? So I sort of know where you sit, but obviously a lot of other people may not. So my thing is, games take a long time to make these days. We've already seen Coalition Gears 5's 2019, and when this comes out, it's 2026. That's 7 years. Granted, they had to do an engine change. they're helping out a lot of the studios like State of Decay, Hellblade 2 or what have you. So maybe you add some years onto that, or I don't know. It's like by the time you even go back, it'd be like the 2030s. And if E-Day is super successful, like I think it could be, to the point where they'd be looking like, okay, what's our next game? Well, let's just do E-Day 2. Then at that point, now it's like, well, even if you want to do Gear 6, you're probably in the 2040s. I don't know. I sort of feel like there's no point. There's no point going back to Gear 6. And I know what they say in PR. And of course, they're going to say we're going to go back to it, because why would you put out negative PR to kind of overshadow what you're just an announcement? But my prediction is they won't make a proper Gear 6, and that we'll just get Gears E-Day sequels. How would you feel about that, or what do you think the future of Gears holds? Do you really think like it's going to be E-Day, and then after E-Day, boom, they'll do Gear 6? What's your thought process on this one?
Okay, here's how I'm going to answer this. And it has slightly changed since you all said that, because I thought about it more. I think let me put it this way. If Gears E-Day is successful and they never go back to the current timeline of Gear 6, I don't think you're going to see a huge uproar. I can agree with you on that. Do I think they go back? I will still lean towards, I do think they will finish that story in some capacity. You could be right that they don't necessarily do it with a full-on game. It could literally be DLC.
Yeah, that's what I said to Jez. I said an expansion, yeah.
But the thing about it is, and here's where I almost want a one-off of Emergence Day and then let's go somewhere else in the timeline, is there's no stakes. There's no stakes in that 14 years to get up to the original Gears of War. We know Marcus is going to be fine. We know Dom's going to be fine. We know Baird and Coltrane, who will eventually show up in that timeline somewhere. They're all going to be fine. Anyone, look, they'll kill Carmine every game because they always do. But, which, by the way, I guess we'll get Carmine Prime.
Yes.
E-Day. So we get to see the first Carmine die. That'll be good. But other than that, there's no real stakes leading in that time period, even though I would like to see certain conflicts and things that happen in there, if that makes sense. So I hear you. I don't necessarily agree with you, but I do hear what you're saying. Whereas if this is, because I do think this will be an overwhelming success for them. And I'll throw this crazy prediction out. I think E-Day will be their biggest selling game. And maybe Jez can answer this. Is Halo 3 is the biggest selling game they've had? I think it is.
I mean, not including, your Call of Duties and stuff like that.
Right. Take that out. Yeah.
I honestly don't know. I'm not that well knowledgeable about Microsoft sales stuff.
But you get my point though, because it was funny. I was just watching the Xbox, that video thing they did a couple years ago. I was just watching it, and it was during that era, and they were just talking about the huge sales that Halo 3 had. But I guess that's just my point. I think this will be the biggest Xbox Game Studio IP probably since that time period for them, in my personal opinion.
I agree.
So to your point, to Rand's point, I could see them exploring it more, and maybe they just keep pushing off Gear 6 to the point where too much time has passed and it doesn't make sense to make a full-on game.
I think there is that issue of stakes, like you said. We know the outcomes of. Do you make 3 games where you all know the outcomes? They'll have to either make new characters to care about, which is difficult, and it's the problem that Gears 4 and 5 had, really, where it's well, you don't really care that much about these characters, and you've got the same problem with doing prequels, right? Yeah, I don't know. I will say though, when I was speaking to them, it does feel like there's like a new regime there now, and that's why they've gone back to naming it Gears of War again, and they're kind
of a good choice.
I agree. It's a good choice.
It's a good choice. I didn't really like how they. It was just Gears. I don't know.
That was a
Gears of War.
Thing, I think.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. Go ahead.
But yeah, it's like they went back to the drawing board. They re-examined what Gears means to people from just like Gears' identity, and this is what they sort of what it boiled down to. It's Marcus and Don. But it's really difficult when you're designing a game that essentially revolves around the passage of time. You kind of like when the game like time's a linear construct, so like eventually you're gonna have to these characters are gonna have to age at some point, and you're gonna have to move on from them, and build up new ones, and we've seen like lots of sagas and TV shows struggle with this in the past, like even in anime, like Dragon Ball obviously famously struggles with this, and you got Naruto doing the Boruto reboot and all that stuff. Oh no, it's Naruto's son and all that kind of stuff. It's really difficult to do when a franchise gets to a certain point, but that's why I think like they can't throw away the Kate stuff, because it's kind of like they're throwing in the towel of making new characters, and it's like they've given up, And then we get into the discussion of like, oh, everything's just a remix or a remaster of everything we've already known. Blah blah.
Everything
blah, blah,
old
blah.
is new again, bro.
Yeah.
Gears of War is 20 years old at this point. It's new. There's probably a whole generation of people that didn't experience it. It'd be new to them.
Look at Furiosa, man. People didn't want Furiosa; they wanted Mad Max. Even though the film was supposedly really good, people.
I think people. Yeah, I think people want Mad Max, but I think it was maybe people wanted a Mad Max and then also want a Furiosa, like maybe afterwards or something.
I don't know. I don't think that franchise is like broad enough to really experiment in that context. Is that. And I think Gears had that issue as well. I think even Halo had that issue with Halo 5. Like everyone's like, "Oh, where's Master Chief?" We want Master Chief. I don't know. Some franchises kind of earn that. I think even Star Wars is struggling with this, where it's like when they're trying to expand Star Wars into a cinematic universe. But the problem is that when you've got such strong characters, it's really difficult to move away from that. I think that's why the Fallout TV show works really well. And I know we're getting well off topic here, but Fallout TV show works so well because Fallout characters are not the main character. The Fallout universe is the main character. That's like why you can have these like characters that sort of aren't necessarily, known, because it's the Fallout universe that you love. It's nobody cares that much about, I don't know. Think of a Fallout character off the top of my head. Mr. House and all this kind of stuff. But yeah. Went on a tangent, yeah.
This is something maybe Paris won't want to admit, but one of the biggest reasons, maybe the untold reason why Fallout is as big a success as it is because of the binge. I honestly think if they did a weekly release for Fallout, it wouldn't have blown up like it did. I think there's something to be said to try to get people who don't know what Fallout is, and everybody's telling them to watch it, and then they watch the first episode and all the episodes are there. They're like, okay, where if it was week to week, maybe they don't care. Maybe they don't come back. The binge is what made Fallout so huge. Paris, thoughts?
I don't like that you asked me this question because you're going to make me admit something I don't want to admit. So I may or may not have spoken to someone that may or may not agree with what you're saying that has direct knowledge of the situation.
I say it anecdotally because my sisters, no interest in any of this stuff. I told them, hey, they're like, what should we watch on TV? I'm like, well, there's Shogun, which was incredible. You talked about it. I think we were both in agreement. One of the best shows in the last 10 years, right? Mm-hmm. I was like, The Bear is amazing. I don't know. Have you watched The Bear yet? I
have not, actually. I need to binge it.
Dude, you need to watch The Bear.
I know.
It is so incredible. And they watch the shows and they love it. And they're like, okay, what? And I was like, watch Fallout. And they're like, what's this? Oh, it's a video game thing. And they're both like, really? I'm like, no. It's really good. Just watch the first episode And they did, and they called me up, and they're like, "Oh my god, it's so good!" And they binged it all in like 2 days, and they told me that if all the episodes weren't available, they probably would have watched the first episode or the second, and then they never would have watched the rest. But because it was all there, they watched it all, and they became fans, and now they're eagerly awaiting season 2. It's the binge, Paris. The binge.
Yeah, it's.
No,
I think
I know.
when you first launch a show, I think binge is the best way to do it. But then on season 2, that's when you start doing week to week.
They'll do a different strategy. Yeah, they'll do week to week for season 2.
Yeah, but I think that's better. I think that's better when everyone knows it and is into it. I think it is more fun to do it week to week, like the WWE. Like, can you imagine if you could just watch WWE 24/7? Yeah, it's like it's fun to talk about what happened in the WWE week to week, and obviously it's a live show. It wouldn't be possible to do it that way. But I think, like, yeah, I don't know. I can see the merits of both. But I do think when you're introducing something new, I think the binge is the best way to do it.
I'm so happy that Fallout 2 is still live. Yeah, we're still live.
Okay, good. Here's what I'll say to that. This is it not? Are we not live?
No, we're live. I have it up.
Okay, here's all I'll say. And I think this is the compromise. I think The Boys is the great compromise to what we're all saying, obviously jokingly, but being serious for a second. Where The Boys puts out the first 3 episodes, so you can kind of get your binge in and then get people excited. And then it's week to week from there for the rest of the season. That's just me.
I mean, here's the thing. I like The Boys, but I'm not even looking at anything The Boys is doing right now until it's basically the week before the last episode. Then I'll watch it all. I just can't do week to week. I just can't. And I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just because I don't know. Like, you wouldn't do it for any other content out there. You wouldn't do it for a movie. You wouldn't do it for a game. You wouldn't do it for a book. You wouldn't do it for any other thing that's telling a story. So it's like, why? I sort of also feel like the binge is strictly just for corporate. It's a way to keep people subscribed for longer instead of being like subscribing and watching it all at your leisure. Rather than like, oh, it's about the discussion.
No, and you're right. If I can interrupt on that, and I think, being serious for a second, when I initially started talking about this, and it was what started all about this, it was from that aspect that if you want these streaming services to stick around, they have to have consistent engagement. Mm-hmm. Or you subscribe for a month or 2, and then you go away, and then they raise prices, or they eventually fold, or whatever the case. The way you keep people consistently subscribed is by having consistent content. And that even goes into gaming with Game Pass. Game Pass only works if you have consistent content to go into it. But that's where I truly was coming from. I really could care less if you binge it or watch it week to week or not. It is about, hey, if you want these streaming services to thrive, you got to have that carrot on the stick to keep people coming back, or they're going to walk away from it.
Yeah. Paris, before we get back to the gaming thing, I want to offer a show to you that I need you to watch outside of The Bear.
Okay.
Do you have Apple TV?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I think you would love this show. Actually, I don't know if you will. I'm just hoping you will. I'm not sure what your tastes are, but Dark Matter just finished its run yesterday. I read the book and it was incredible. The TV show came out this past
about?
Dark Matter.
Well, I suppose you're going to explain it.
It's kind of don't want to spoil it, but it's a science fiction show, which Apple TV does a lot of great sci-fi stuff. Joel Edgerton's in it, Jennifer Connelly, and it's 9 episodes. It's all finished. The writer of the book is actually the creator of the show, which sometimes that doesn't happen. And it's incredible, Paris. I think you would really like it. and it's not a show I see a lot of people talking about. So I need that Paris push.
Yeah, the Paris push, hilarious. It's funny. You're not the first person to tell me that. Yeah, I do have Apple TV Plus, so I just need to add it to the list. Jump in and watch it.
It's so freaking good. I'll just say it has to do with like the multiverse, but it does it in such a way where it's probably one of the better representations, or maybe the best representations of multiple realities I've ever seen, because it keeps it grounded in the characters, and it's not something you normally see too often in these sort of stories. And I don't want to like say too much more because, you know, spoilers or whatever, but I need you to watch it, Paris, because then I need you to tweet out being like, I watched this and it was amazing, and oh my God.
Well, let me ask you this. Have you seen Everything Everywhere All at Once?
Oh, love it. Love it.
Is it a similar vein when you talk about the way they handle the multiverse, or no?
Not as ridiculous and over the top and comedic as that, but in a way, yeah. Yeah.
I'm down. Like you said, that was more comedic, but I thought their handling of the multiverse was very smart.
Yes,
that's how I like it. Yeah.
I think their handling of the multiverse in this is better.
Yeah.
But it keeps it grounded to just, some get over the top with the ridiculousness of it. This one is like grounded by the characters. And I don't want to like spoil it, because it's when I read the book, I was blown away. I was like, holy crap. And then the TV show is just as good. But let's get back to the gaming discussion.
Yeah. Yes.
Call of Duty's coming out this year, right? Xbox marketed all that stuff. Joaquin wants me to ask you this question. He says, hey, Paris. So Xbox is barreling into next gen as a multi-platform publisher with rumors of a handheld fueled by a yearly Game Pass on COD. Will this be enough? Is this a winning formula in your opinion? And if not, what else can they do?
I don't know would be my answer. Again, that's why they get paid the big bucks to try and figure this out. I think, Jez, the way that you put it, they're attempting to compete in a different way now. I mean, it really is like, okay, here's how I look at it. And it is so funny because, again, when we talk about grifters and people making these dumb YouTube videos, I was in a dumb YouTube video today where someone took the tweet where I was talking about, I was like, look, if you have a game that you can play right now, why are you worrying about where it potentially could be tomorrow? And I did like the little Morpheus gif and all that. And the point of me saying that was, if Xbox, and we saw the Matt Booty interview with Variety and all that, if you know these games are coming to Xbox first for a period of time and they're day one on Game Pass, if it's a game I want to play, I'm not going to cross my fingers and sit and go, well, I'll just wait to see if it eventually shows up on PlayStation. No, I'm going to go play the game because I want to play the game. I'm not going to stress out over where it might be eventually 18 months from now or something like that. So I think their strategy is, if we give you a compelling lineup of games and we give you this subscription service that, again, is filled with content that will keep you consistently subscribed to it, that could be an incentive for you to want to stay in our ecosystem and not be in the other digital ecosystem that is PlayStation, right? Or on Steam or whatever the case. Again, we obviously talk rumors of handhelds and all this stuff. At this point where there's smoke, there's fire. Eventually, Xbox is going to have a handheld. What that ultimately becomes and pricing and all that, is TBD. I'm of the contention we won't see it until whatever their next gen offering is. I don't know. Look, if they give me an Xbox handheld that replicates the Xbox experience on a handheld, I can play all my Xbox games on it day one. And when I say all, I'm not just talking Game Pass or PC Game Pass. I mean all of them. If I own it in my digital library, I can play it on this thing. I'm getting it day one, right? Because that's an incentive for me. I am a fan of Game Pass, and I've repeatedly said that over the years. I have children who play on it too. It is a value proposition for me to be able to have this subscription service and let them play whatever they want on it. And if they keep adding AAA titles and all this content to it, it makes sense for me. So coming from my standpoint, yes, it would be an incentive, and I think it would work. but I'm not the use case for everyone. So that's why I say I don't know. And we'll obviously see, but clearly they've been crunching numbers. You know, again, going back to the Phil thing we did last year, Phil admitted they lost the digital ecosystem age, which was last gen. Didn't matter if Starfield was an 11 out of 10. They got to figure out another way to give an incentive to people to want to invest in Xbox. Bottom line.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess that dovetails into the whole multi-platform strategy. And I know you're very much of the opinion that it's nothing but a good thing, right? About them. Doesn't bother you.
I am not stressed if someone gets to play a game that I play on another platform, and I never have been. So it doesn't bother me.
No, and I'm not stressed either. Like I don't care.
No, but we know there's some people that are.
No. Obviously there are. My whole thing is I have concerns about like where it could lead the Xbox console user base down the road. You know, and that's Microsoft's job to like get people to want to purchase their piece of hardware. And you know, we've talked about it on plenty of podcasts, and it's just like, if you're putting your games on other platforms, does that make your platform less desirable? A lot of people would say it would. A lot of people would say, hey, if Xbox is putting all their games on PlayStation, why would I need an Xbox? I'll just get a PlayStation because then I can play the best of both worlds, essentially, right? Or play the games that don't come to Xbox, like Marvel vs. Capcom 2, which was obviously a big thing that happened this week. Or a game that Black Myth Wukong, which is coming to PlayStation Day 1, right? So, like, you pretty much get everything there. And my worry is that they'll drive people away from the ecosystem, console user base so much that developers won't even bother putting their games on Xbox because there won't be an audience there. And then I'll be personally affected because that's where I like to play. And I'll be sitting there being like, why isn't Alan Wake 3 coming to Xbox? Oh yeah, it's because nobody owns an Xbox. Right? That's my concern about their multi-platform strategy. Is that it's going, you know, lead to the eventuality of that down the road. Now I could be completely wrong and maybe it's nothing but good things or whatever, or I'll just switch to PC or what have you, but that was my concern about all this. That it felt like it was you know, we're going to go after short-term revenue at the expense of building our own platform. And Xbox already has problems getting certain games for whatever reason it may be. And then, like, I don't know, it's like we've seen the hardware numbers for the Xbox Series consoles. They're not doing so great. Are they going to really do that much better next generation, or is it going to be worse? You know, I don't know how it's going to be. And it's not because I don't care if somebody plays Hellblade 2 on PlayStation. That doesn't bother me at all. What would affect me is if suddenly now I'm not getting a lot of the games I used to get because everybody abandoned the Xbox console hardware, I guess. You know, that's my concern, Paris.
So, and I hear you, and I think that is a valid concern. And because I just was thinking about this like a week or so ago, that hasn't stopped Nintendo.
True.
In that if you make enough, I gotta play games on your platform, people will come to it. And this is, again, where if that handheld winds up being a huge success, reasonably priced, something that people want to get their hands on, let's just say for giggles, you know, you can sideload Steam on it, right? You can do some of these other third-party things on it as well. You just make the hardware itself desirable, even beyond just being Xbox. But the advantage of having Xbox, again, goes back to you have the subscription service where you know you're going to get all the games as a part of it. Here's a bunch of must-play, I gotta have games that are coming out on a routine basis from them. Maybe that's enough. And you have to figure, realistically, the big games from an EA, from a Ubisoft, from a 2K, Devolver Digital, they're still going to come to the platform. Now, if we get to the point of what you're saying, where EA decides, well, you know what? We don't need NCAA football or Madden to come to Xbox. We're just putting it on PlayStation now, right? You know, if in that kind of crazy scenario, or Splinter Cell is going to skip Xbox, they truly have a problem. I get we're seeing now these one-offs of certain games that are missing the platform. And it's so funny. I may or may not have had a conversation with someone at that Xbox mixer that was not very happy about a certain game not coming to their platform. I'll just put it that way. So they obviously realize it. They see it. But, you know, again, that's why they get paid the big bucks to figure it out. You figure it out. It's not my problem. That's the way I look at it. And that's always, and I know that almost seems like a cop-out, but the way I look at it is, I'm the consumer. You need to make sure that you're doing things to make me happy as a consumer to want to continue to buy your product. I personally, and this is why I said again, if I know these games are coming to Xbox first, and it's probably going to be a minimum of 12 to 18 months before they could potentially go somewhere else, because we still don't know it's a guarantee. It's just, again, you got to take them by their word where they say case by case. So far, that's what it's been. We'll see. That's not enough to make me upset at Xbox to where I don't want to invest in Xbox. I'm still going to play on Xbox hardware. I'm still going to play Xbox games. You know what I mean? So, I mean, we'll see. We'll see what the strategy is. I think the way that I always look at this is change is always difficult. We fight it kicking and screaming because it's not what we're used to. Maybe this turns out to not even be a big deal 5 years from now. You know, we know PlayStation isn't necessarily doing exactly what Xbox is doing, but they are also tinkering around with multi-platform stuff as well. I just think it's just where we are. And I get Xbox is doing it from a position of weakness because they're the third-party platform. That's understandable and reasonable. Nintendo definitely doesn't have an incentive to do it, and it'll be a long time before we ever see them do it. But we're slowly but surely seeing PlayStation at least consider it with certain titles. And obviously their PC strategy, and now we got Lego Horizon going to Switch. So they're not immune to it. They're just not going to be as aggressive as Xbox is. Let's put it that way. So we'll see.
I think to your point about Nintendo being able to get away with it, I think that's quite compelling. Because, you know, Nintendo, even though like people buy Nintendo for their exclusives, there's so many games that skip Nintendo. So many, and they're just about to break the barrier for highest, you know, selling console in history, beating the PS2. I think they're projected to surpass that very soon. So I think like as long as Microsoft can, I think it boils down to marketing, because like when I was driving to the airport in LA, the American taxi drivers are very chatty. Like European taxi drivers are like so reserved and quiet, and like I don't want to talk to anyone. Like, like it's almost polite not to talk. But American taxi drivers are like, they want to tell you their life story. I love it.
Yeah.
But we were talking about gaming, and he thought, first of all, he thought Grand Theft Auto 4 was PlayStation exclusive, and Grand Theft Auto 5 was as well. So I had to convince him about that, and then also telling him about Game Pass. He'd never heard of Game Pass, and you know, and I think like this strategy that Microsoft has, where it's like you can make the argument that, yeah, maybe these games will go to PlayStation, but they're going to be first and more affordable on Xbox as a sort of a long-term investment for cost effectiveness. That only works if people know about it. And I suppose like right now we have this sort of discourse that Xbox isn't particularly great at, you know, showcasing its stuff, but maybe that marketing change we were talking about earlier will boil down and help out there somewhere. I don't know. Right now I'm taking a wait and see approach. People like, you know, you were talking about earlier how people bring up tweets from like months or years ago even. Like people still like bring up tweets I said where I was like, there's no way Xbox will get rid of their exclusives and stuff like that. But it's just like shit happens, you know. I think there was a point, you know, Phil himself, like you said, Phil himself was saying things like, we bought Bethesda so we'd have, you know, relating to the feedback that we didn't have enough exclusives. And, you know, things have changed now. So, yeah. Time is a linear construct. Things change. Yeah. That is what happens with the passage of time. But we'll see.
Yeah, what were you going to say, Paris?
No, I'm just agreeing with Jez. Just the fact that things do change. What was relevant 4 years ago may not be relevant today, like we already talked about. It's just, you know, and I caught a lot of grief over this at the beginning of the year because, you know, I was like, look, the business of gaming is changing. Just is. I mean, just look at what leaders across the industry, not just Xbox. Listen to what PlayStation is telling you. Listen to what the head of EA is telling you, Take-Two, etc. They're telling you this stuff is changing. We're seeing the massive layoffs across the industry because they scaled up too quickly during COVID, and now they got to scale back. AAA gaming budgets have exploded. They're trying to scale it back. So there's a lot of change across the board. And you know, whether you want to believe Phil or not, I mean, what did Phil say during the business update? And I think he even just said it again with Ryan. It is his job to run a sustainable business, and they want to see growth. And the console side has not grown in a long time. So what do? You figure out another way to generate revenue and growth. And that's what they're doing. So we'll see if it works. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to work because I don't know, but let's see how it plays out.
Yeah, and you mentioned Phil's interview about running a profitable business, and he said that because they shut down Tango and some of the other studios. What was your reaction when you first found out that they were closing Tango Gameworks?
Hated it. It still doesn't make sense to me. It just Tango specifically, out of all of them, you can make an argument for why Arcane Austin closed. I mean, just look at Redfall. So you could go, okay, you could rationalize that. Roundhouse and what was it, Alpha Dog? I guess they just kind of consolidated and moved them into other Bethesda studios. And no one was going to have all this huge outrage over those studios either. But Tango's the one. Whereas take Hi-Fi Rush out of it just for a second, because that clearly was a lot of what started this. It's the fact that they made so much noise about wanting to have a Japanese studio. You had a Japanese studio. You now have boots on the ground in Japan with a way to actively recruit more Japanese talent, you know, into that studio and to make more Japanese centric games. And then you close the studio. Again, I can only tell it from my vantage point. If it was me, if I'm a Japanese developer and Microsoft just closed their only Japanese studio and you're now trying to recruit me into working on games for Microsoft, I'm like, I don't know about that. You know, I'm not feeling very comfortable about that. I'm not feeling the what's the word I'm looking for? The trust and the security of taking a job, you know, under Xbox Game Studios in that scenario, because you just closed the only Japanese studio that you had. I'd probably want to go work somewhere else if I had the option, but that's just me personally. So that one doesn't make sense to me. I would love to have a real conversation about that with someone one day to wrap my head around it. I know what Matt Booty said during the Variety interview. It can't just be leadership, because if it's a leadership thing, go hire new leadership to run the studio then. That's the way I look at it. Why are you getting rid of the entire studio? And I guarantee you there's other reasons to it that they're just not talking about, you know, from a again, it's business. You know, you have to take the personal feelings out of it. But on the surface, it just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, it sucked. Like I don't know, because it kind of like flew in the face of what we all thought Game Pass was supposed to help stop. Right? Like, no, you can make these smaller, critically acclaimed games. You don't have to worry about retail sales, and you would be protected by it. And then, like, it didn't seem like that was the case. It's like, okay, well, we made Hi-Fi Rush. It did exactly what we wanted. It didn't sell. Is that our problem or your problem? You know, did the I sort of wonder now if the Shadow Drop was the best course of action for the game. Did it not, you know, like, should they have marketed it for a year in advance? Did the Shadow Drop hurt it? Because, you know, we've seen the numbers and it didn't particularly do very well on PC. And I think they only announced, like, maybe, was it 3 million players? I don't even know if it got up to that number. And we were all sitting there like, all right, well, we'll get a Hi-Fi Rush 2. Maybe we'll get an Evil Within 3. Then Mikami leaves. And it's like, okay, well, everything will still be good, and then all of a sudden they're gone, and you're just like, what the fuck? Yeah. You know, because it makes you worried for Ninja Theory, makes you worried for Compulsion, it makes you worried for In Exile, it makes you worried for any studio that's not making a monster franchise that brings in the bucks, right? Because if it could happen to Tango, why couldn't it happen to one of the other smaller studios? And
completely agree. And the whole point was, like, you take a game like Pentiment, whereas wasn't that supposed to be the whole point of Game Pass and all of this, where you can make these passion project games and you don't have to necessarily worry about how they sell because it's a part of the overall scope of what they're doing with Game Pass and the whole portfolio. But then to see a game, and I think with Hi-Fi Rush even more particular, since we're talking about that, okay, it didn't sell that well, but it was a shadow drop, to your point, so it wasn't marketed heavily, but it was critically acclaimed. It was your most critically acclaimed game of 2023. And then you do this plan to put it on other platforms and then you close the studio right after. What do you think's going to happen? I'm not buying that game if it's on PlayStation or PC now. And I know the studio is going away and there's never going to be a sequel to it. I mean, and not that everyone out there knows that that's even a thing. You ask the average person, they probably don't even know who the hell Tango is. But I don't know. It doesn't instill goodwill in that IP to do something like that, especially if your whole point is to try and sell more units of it. So, sell more copies. So I don't know, like, we keep saying it's just an awful situation overall. I think it made a lot of people in leadership not look great that you did that. And, it's the ugly side of this business that I don't like talking about, but unfortunately you have to. I mean, think about it. Like and I don't want to say you put me on the spot because that's not fair, but when all this went down and we did the Gamescast, it was myself, Greg Miller and Gary Whitta, and we were talking about Xbox and where things are going. And Greg asked the question, do you think Phil is still the right person for this job? And it was funny because in my head, I go, it doesn't matter what I say right now, someone's going to be mad. I knew it. So I said no. I said no. I think he still should be in charge of Xbox because I think it could be a lot worse if he wasn't, personally.
The thing is, like, these kind of people act like, Tango shutting down is because Phil made a mistake or something. And at the end of the day, you could say, like, the run up to this happening was the mistake, but within the sort of the confines of everything going on, I'm not sure anyone else would have necessarily been in a position to take a different decision. So it's like, it's like what Phil says, like, and people dismiss this because it is capitalistic and it's harsh and stuff, but he said to IGN twice, I believe it was IGN, I don't have the luxury of running an unprofitable business.
Exactly.
And when he's talking about that, he's talking about year over year, quarter over quarter. And I think, like, when they're looking at redoing their budgets and stuff and they're looking at Tango, it's like, yeah, Tango, maybe Hi-Fi was, maybe it did well enough for this quarter, but what does their future profitability look like? What is, like, how do we get them to that level that they need to be at in order for us to be sort of in a sort of, I don't know how you describe it, like a sort of good place where you don't have to sort of worry about what the future looks like with that studio. And Matt Booty is alluding to things like, there not being the right leaders in place. Maybe there's people there that need a better business acumen. There's also the fact that they were completely isolated from the rest of the org. So, like, even if Hellblade does bad, Ninja Theory still is a prolific Unreal Engine support studio and motion capture provider and all that kind of stuff. So there's a huge amount of factors, and it's like you say, they're not giving us like a blow-by-blow rundown of why the studio was closed. And it's shit. It's really shit. But I think people who sort of like Phil Spencer should be fired are really gunning for the simplistic view of things. The emotional, simplistic view of things, which is great for a YouTube title or a headline and stuff. But I just think it conveniently ignores reality, and that's not a popular thing to say. But
no,
in Phil's position, would you have done differently? We're sort of all victims of the system, I don't know. Maybe I'm naive, and I think I am a bit naive, but I don't know what I would have done.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing about it. You try to say, like you said, put yourself in those shoes. What would you do? What makes sense? Obviously, it's about the business. It's the things that we don't like talking about, but it's It's just the unfortunate reality of how all of this works. In a perfect world, all these games are great. They sell great. Game Pass is a huge success. Hardware is flying off of the shelves and it's all unicorns and rainbows. But we know that's not the current state of the industry right now. So at some point, something has to give. And I'm not trying to say that as making an excuse for Xbox or any other company that's doing all these layoffs. I mean, I work in tech. And trust me, I keep my head on a swivel, even though I'm good at my job and I know what I'm doing. I mean, anything. If the business is not sustainable, they're going to make cuts. They're going to lay people off. I've already been through 2 layoffs in the past couple of years. You know what I mean? And it sucks. It flat out sucks to see people that you genuinely like working with go away because the business isn't making enough money. You know, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess, and I mentioned this on the last show, but I felt Phil's answer was like a non-answer though, or at least like he comes out and he's just like, "Hey, why'd you shut?" You know, Ryan's like, "Why'd you shut down the studio?" He's like, "Well, I got to run a profitable business." It's like, yeah, dude, we all know that. You know what I mean? Like, and the way he just said it, it's like, am I to believe that if you didn't shut down those studios, that you are now running a unprofitable business? Right? Because that's essentially what he said. He's like, I got to run a profitable business, so I had to shut these 4 down. And it's like, but if you didn't shut them down, does that mean Xbox is now in the red? And it was just those 4 studios that would cause that? And it's kind of like, if that's the case, man, you are on a really thin line if it was just those studios. So it's like, I'm with you, Paris. I want to know like the nitty gritty details, because just telling me you need to run a profitable business, it's like, yeah, so does every other business in history of the world. Essentially, it doesn't tell me anything. It's just like, okay, yeah, you know, and it's just, but that's, I don't know. It just felt like and that was my like the whole thing with Phil doing a live interview. It's like I knew we weren't going to get anything substantial from it. In that short sort of time space, because it's just like they're not going to give you what we would want. And I guess maybe it was like, you know, the slimy platform things that Phil said. You know, that really, I guess that really angered Sean Layden, because he was going around liking tweets about that. But even I want to, you know, you bring up your tweet that you had, I think you had tweeted out earlier this year, you know, because a lot of people in the Xbox community, or a lot of people in general, think that because you're defending Microsoft's multi-platform approach, that you're essentially going to be responsible for their destruction. You know what I'm saying? You know, there are some people that level that accusation at you. And I think that's a bit unfair, because it's not like Phil and Sarah and Matt Booty are looking at it and they're like, all right, how's this new strategy going to go over with the fans? And they say, well, Paris is on board, so we're good. Right? Could you imagine? Like, Paris is on board. He likes it. Danny Pena likes it. Khalif Adam likes it. All right, we're good. We're good to go with this stuff. They're going to look at actual data from customers, and they're going to see that Sea of Thieves did what Sea of Thieves does on PlayStation. They're like, okay, well, obviously this test was successful. If Sea of Thieves didn't do well, if it bombed like apparently Pentiment and Hi-Fi Rush did, then maybe nothing ever comes out of it. It doesn't matter if you're in favor of it or just don't care. They're going to use actual customer, like people. I guess it's because it's easy to say something on social media. It's the old adage of actions speak louder than words. You can say something, but it doesn't really mean much. Where's your money at, essentially? And people decided, you know what, we're gonna buy Sea of Thieves over on PlayStation, and because of that, it's like, okay, that will probably lead to more games on Xbox. So, you know, while I, you know, have, you know, I'm a little bit more. I'm not the biggest fan of the multi-platform approach for reasons I've explained on the show. I know that it's just like, well, Paris defending it has nothing to do with like them actually doing it. And you know, it has no bearing on it. It's just like they're going to look at what the customer base tells them, and they're going to go from there. It doesn't matter what you know. It's like, oh, we got the approval from Paris, guys, we're good, right?
Exactly. They're not consulting with me on them making these C-level decisions. Hey, look, because if you do, I have my fee. I'll gladly give my opinion. No, but I mean, to your point, it's my thing has been from the get. I always try to look at things logically. I try to take the fandom out of it, the brand loyalty, all of that. I just look at things logically. And even when this rumor first popped up back in January about those 4 games, my thought was then, and it still is, it is not going to hurt me if other people get to play these games. Now, there are a lot of internet financial analysts out there that tend to disagree with me and tell me how it's going to hurt the brand, it's going to hurt the business, and people aren't going to buy hardware anymore, this, that, and the third. Again, it is not up to me to figure that out. Nothing I say is going to change that. I mean, we can obviously be vocal, and look, people were vocal enough that you force the CEO, the president, and the head of the studios to get on a podcast with Tina and talk about this, because that would not have happened if people weren't being vocal. But what that podcast also should have told you was because I think Phil said it, they're going to make some decisions that are not popular. Because again, it's about the business side of it. You have to have a sustainable business. And I'm not sitting here saying I want Halo on PlayStation or something like that, because I do not. And I think I've made that crystal clear. The moment you start bringing your core franchises over to other platforms, it gets just weird to me. But there's a chance it happens. So you either accept it or you don't. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And I just think it's 2024. It's not 1984 anymore. Things change. And if we're seeing more games go multi-platform, then so be it. I mean, to your point about Sea of Thieves, I mean, hell, at the Mixer, we were talking with Phil, and he even mentioned Sea of Thieves and how well it's doing. Like, what he said was, not only did you clearly see an uptick on PlayStation because it never existed there before, but you saw more people starting to play it on Xbox and PC as well. That's good for their business. There's just no way around that. I mean, of course, they're going to see something like that and go, well, we need to do more of that. It makes sense to me that probably your big AAA franchises, with exception, like I think the simplest way I explained it was this. Let me say it this way. I think games from Activision and Bethesda that already existed on other platforms will continue so. I think new IPs are probably going to have a timed exclusivity in Xbox. And then after a certain period of time, they'll make a decision. All right, this one makes sense to go over to PlayStation. Maybe this one doesn't. And I just think that's going to be the cadence moving forward. So that's why I say, again, if I'm a PlayStation guy, I can't just sit with confidence and go, well, I'll just wait till it comes to PlayStation, because we have no guarantee that's going to happen or when it's going to happen. So if there's a game I want to play, just like as an example, I want to play Spider-Man 2. I'm not going to sit here and fold my arms and go, well, I'll just wait till it comes to PC. Hell no, I'm going to go play it on PlayStation 5 because I want to play it. You know what I mean? And that's just my mentality on it. And that'll continue to be my mentality. As far as the sustainability of the business and all of that, you know, they're way smarter people than me. And I'm pretty sure Amy Hood ain't going to let them tank the business. So whatever they're doing, they obviously must all be on board with. So we'll see.
Yeah. You know, but there are definitely people out there when Spider-Man 2 came out that I'd be like, I'll wait for it to come to PC though. You know?
That's me.
Of course.
Yeah, Jez. That's Jez.
But that's kind of the point. The people that the Jezzes of the world, you're not going to change their mind anyways. Because I always say that with PlayStation and putting games on PC. There are people that will only play those games if they come to PC. Because I think Herman Hulst was even talking about that. They're hoping their strategy incentivizes a PC player to want to go pick up a PlayStation. It's not going to happen. If they wanted a PlayStation, they would have bought one already. You're not going to play God of War and go, well, you know what? Damn, I'm going to go buy a PlayStation now because I want to play Ragnarok. They're not going to do that. They're going to go, I'll wait till it eventually comes to PC and play it then, or not at all. And
Jez had an interesting take about that. What was your thing, Jez, that you were saying that they know that's not going to happen? What about the PlayStation strategy of like, oh, we hope by putting it on PC that those people go buy PlayStations. And you said something where it was like,
I don't think PlayStation is that dumb to think that. I think they just literally said that so you know, the fans wouldn't get all upset. Because, like, kind of like Apple, Sony very good at controlling their image, you know, and Apple's the same way. And I know Apple's the same way because our sister sites deal with Apple, and they are really aggressive in how, like, you know, you can and can't discuss their products, which is why I just never trust any Apple reviews ever, you know, unless it's like from a reviewer that goes out and buys them. And there are plenty of YouTubers that do that. And they do that because Apple knows they can't control them. I'm not saying Sony does that. Evidently not, because I don't think Sony would give me review codes if they cared so much about, you know, that. And it's not like I badmouth Sony really anyway, but point being, I don't really bring a lot to the table when it comes to PlayStation coverage, so why would they give me codes, right? But I think they know that no one's going to switch. I think they know that, you know, they hard know that. And I think they're just, you know, I think they're just controlling the message. I don't know why they think that, because there's literally no evidence that would ever happen. I mean, yeah. Microsoft, you know, I don't think, you know, Microsoft putting their games on PC has converted anyone to Xbox, you know, and that's like, you could say, oh, well, PlayStation games are better, but it's like, yeah, but seriously? Like, everyone's got, like, infinite backlogs. PC gamers have more backlogs than ever, you know. The real reason I don't buy a PlayStation, and I very so almost did for Final Fantasy VII, I just don't have time. I barely have time for the Xbox games I got. Throwing another console into the mix just doesn't work. And you factor that in for a PC gamer who's got, like, Steam, infinite games, infinite affordability. There was literally an analysis recently, which I'm not sure if was entirely accurate, but they said, like, Steam gamers spend $19 billion on games they never play on Steam, you know. And why would you add a console into the mix where you have to pay for online and all that other stuff that you don't have to do on PC? PC gamers are sticking where they are. And I've got a further note on that. You know, Sean Layden recently said, we need to get to a point where there's only one home console. Did you hear him say that?
Yeah, I did.
And that was controversial. Right? A lot of people were saying, like, oh, he's talking about PC. He's talking about PlayStation there. He ain't talking about PlayStation. He's talking about Steam. You know, because he's talking about PC. At the end of the day, Tencent, like, he works for Tencent now. And the idea of, like, having one platform, that benefits publishers because they don't have to do any ports and all that kind of stuff, right? But everyone knows that the cheapest platform to develop for is PC by a country mile. You know, if I'm a Tencent and I've got a Riot launcher, I don't have to give any money to Steam. I don't have to give any money to PlayStation or Xbox, you know. And with the proliferation of PC, the affordability of components now compared to, like, in the 90s and stuff, it used to be so expensive to get a game PC, and it's still expensive, but it's not as expensive. It's not unattainable now. And there's so many games that are run on low-end hardware, and so many good games that are run on low-end hardware, you know. I think that's why Xbox is, you know, going to converge their offering with Windows. But that's a tangent. The big old tangent.
Well, I didn't want to, you know, keep you that much longer, Paris. So I think we'll probably end the show here. We have a couple questions from Joaquin. You know, he wants you to do rapid fire. I'll just ask a couple of these to you. He said he wants to know what are your YouTube goals? Because you've been trying to do more videos, I've noticed.
Yeah, I don't know. I was doing YouTube prior to the pandemic, right? And then I joined Kind of Funny, and I kind of just stopped completely. And I just recently, someone had said something to me. It was like, you should own something. You don't really own anything. And I thought about it. I was like, you know what? You're right. I don't own Gamertag Radio. I don't own Kind of Funny.
You don't own Gamertag Radio? I didn't know.
No, it's Danny's. It's Danny. I mean, we're a partnership. We're brothers and all that. I mean, don't get me wrong. But and not that he would ever do this, but if Danny decided one day, yeah, I don't want you to be on GTR anymore, I would just have to say, okay. What am I going to do?
It's only a matter of time before Jez kicks me off Xbox too.
Yeah.
But your own YouTube channel?
Yeah. But even what kind of funny is, as much as I've worked with them over the past few years and we're all family, and, you know, if anything, Greg has always encouraged me to be more proactive about things that I want to be involved with, that they do. I don't own Kind of Funny. Like, they just made a programming change. They told me they were making the programming change. They didn't ask me, hey, should we do this? And I was like, no, they're doing it. So it's just to that point, maybe I should have my own thing that I own, that I want to do. So that would be that YouTube channel. And I mean, the reception on it's been pretty positive so far. And even at Summer Game Fest, I had a few people coming up to me, encouraging me. It's like, dude, do your own thing. Mm-hmm. You're good doing solo content. Do more of it. And it really just comes down to me, time.
Yep.
You know, obviously I have my real job and things that I want to do, but I for sure there'll definitely be games that'll be coming out the rest of this year that I might be doing a review on Kind of Funny or something. I'll still do like I did it with Hellblade 2. I did my own Hellblade 2 review, but then I did a review on Kind of Funny as well. So, you know, we'll see. We'll just see where it goes. I mean, I'm not like, oh, I need to hit 100,000 subscribers or anything crazy like that. Let's just put out content and see where it goes. Now, I did invest in more equipment that I plan on using. And like, even when I go to PAX this year, I'm definitely going to take that, like some wireless mics. I already have camera stuff, lighting, all that I can use at home. So we'll see. We'll just see where it goes.
Monkey versus Tramp says, Snowbike Mike and Gary Witt are in a burning house. Who do you save?
Snowbike Mike.
I'm going to save one.
Snowbike Mike. Do you see all the trash talk Gary does to me? Gary's good. Bye, Gary. It was good knowing you.
Yep. You gotta save Snowbike Mike.
Yeah. I have to save Mike.
I don't know if he told you, but I think it was like Thursday or Friday at the Summer Games Fest. I called Cognito. And Cognito went in a corner and he was talking to me, and I was we were just talking. And like, Mike grabs the phone from him and starts reading me the riot act about, like, Rand, why aren't you here? What the hell? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I was like, Mike, I'm sorry.
No, I heard about this. And let me take this as a moment to say, and Jez can confirm this, because we were talking about this as we're walking into Play Days. I was like, I wish Rand was here. I want to meet Rand.
So many people said that to me.
To be at these things. Yes.
Xbox people said that to me.
Rand's
just there slacking off.
Yeah, maybe we can make it happen next year. But I also want to meet everybody, so.
That honestly is the best part of all of this.
That'd be the only reason I really want to go, actually, so.
Yeah.
Would be to meet the people otherwise. Because it's like, I'm not really interested in, I don't really do demos and stuff. I wouldn't be interested in doing that. It would just be like, all right, let's meet all these cool people that I've talked to. So, Joaquin wants to know, would you ever work for a gaming studio? The opportunity came up.
Yes, I would. To be perfectly honest with you, and this gets clipped and put out there, it's probably the natural progression of what I've been doing.
Okay. That seems to be like a lot of people in the media seem to then, go. Jez, where would you want to work? Oh, we were in Blizzard. World of Warcraft. You'd be with World of Warcraft.
100% World of Warcraft.
100% World of Warcraft.
But honestly, any cool studio, to be honest. I mean, I'm got nothing to offer a game studio, unfortunately.
It's just right now is a very scary time that I would not want to make a job change. Yeah. But I mean, once everything settles down again, is more stable, I could see a scenario where that happens.
You interviewed lots of people, right, on Gamertag Radio, Kind of Funny. What's the one interview, or at least the one person that you haven't interviewed yet that you really want to, like the top of your list?
Gabe Newell.
Gabe, and that's interesting. Okay.
I find his perspective on the industry fascinating, and I would love to talk to him now about Valve's role and everything. Not only as basically a platform, let's say, because of Steam and just being able to deliver content that way, but his take on VR with like the Valve Index. Obviously, what the Steam Deck has been kind of disruptive to the industry alongside the Switch, and them still being a game developer. They still make games, you know, and yeah, it would be a fascinating conversation. I would love it.
Did you see? Did you guys see a Counter-Strike skin sold for over $1 million?
Recently?
No, I did not see that. No,
I don't know if it's true. Like the seller claims it's true, but anonymous buyer in China apparently. So that's certainly lucrative. And
yeah, what is your dream game that you wish could be made or come back? Well, it's probably Banjo, right?
I mean, yeah, everyone's gonna say Banjo. It's probably not. You know what? God damn it! I want episode 3. Half-Life. Yeah.
You know, okay, so for a long time, people would ask me, what game do I want? It was like, I want a new Splinter Cell. And then they like are doing the remake. So it was like, okay. And before that, it was Alan Wake 2. I literally was in a party with Phil back in 2015. One of the first times I met him, and we were playing Halo 5 together, right? And he was like, hey, if I could make a game, what game would you want me to make? You know, if I could fund a game. And I was like, I want Alan Wake 2. And he was like, oh, okay. So I got my game. I got Alan Wake 2, right? And it was better than I ever could imagine. So when people ask me now what my dream game would be, Half-Life 3 is an interesting one because I do love Half-Life. But I'll say Quantum Break 2.
Interesting.
I want that story. It's right there.
You want Quantum Break to have its story finished, but not Gears 4 or 5, which probably sold way more and made way more.
Money. But here's the thing. Like, I think Remedy wants to do Quantum Break 2. I don't think the Coalition wants anything to do with Gears 6. Honestly, if I had to say. But
you want to hear a funny story really quick since you bring it up, Alan Wake 2, and this will bring it all full circle. So at that same preview event for Alan Wake 2, where we had the Dreamcast guy incident, Sean Ashmore was there.
Oh, that's cool.
And we're talking to him. And it was just like, he's a legit like gamer. Like, he totally was into everything, all that. He was playing on the preview and all that kind of stuff. But he's just talking to us like a normal dude. And at one point, I just had to say it. I'm like, dude, you're freaking ice, man. I can't get past it. And everyone just started laughing because it's like, you know, he's a celebrity. He's obviously a known person. And just how down to earth and cool he was just awesome. So, yeah, just for that alone, I co-sign you getting another Quantum Break. Seems really good dude.
Have you played the Alan Wake 2 DLCs yet?
No, I need to. I've taken like a mini break. I haven't really played anything.
Hey,
in like the last couple
I'm
weeks.
with you. Jez is trying to get me to play Elden Ring DLC because he sent me a code for it, and I'm just like, I don't know. I wasn't really in the mood to play it because I think it's finally time for me to don my yellow chair. Finally, because I've never played Cyberpunk, so I think it's time to play Cyberpunk.
You should. I mean, look, at this point, they're completely done. It's not going to get any more updates moving forward. But in its current state, I mean, this is as close to that original vision of that demo as obviously the game's ever going to be. But it's pretty close. It's in a really good place.
But that's it. Want to thank everybody for being here. Thank you for all the questions and all the channel memberships. The Jez Scarecrow 121 dropped like 15 so Jez. Of course, we got to thank the one and only Parris Lilly for giving his time and coming on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
No, of course. And as you know, I lurk in your chat all the time.
Yes.
I am a fan of what you guys do, and I always appreciate you having me on. It's always a great conversation. I always like talking to you.
Yeah, there's so much to talk about, and obviously, like, you're everywhere. Everybody knows that. But for anybody that doesn't, watching this later, where can they follow you or find your content at?
You can find me at GamerTag Radio. You can find me over at Kind of Funny, and on social media, I am Vicious696. Okay,
so. Why Vicious696?
I've not told you this story.
I don't think so. I don't think I've heard it.
It's actually pretty simple. I was in the Xbox Live Alpha when that came out. And you have gamer tag. And at that time, Cowboy Bebop was huge. right? And I'm a fan of Vicious, the villain of Cowboy Bebop. So I wanted to be my gamer tag to be Vicious, and Vicious was a banned word at the time.
Really?
So I had to add on something else. 696. I used to be in an Unreal Tournament clan, and 696 was part of the call sign. So I just put the two together. Vicious 696, and boom, that's it. And
that's so similar to mine. So similar. I wasn't an alpha or beta. I got Xbox Live in 2004 because I was a PlayStation fanboy. And I got Xbox Live for Halo 2. Yeah, it was. But Jez still says I am. There are some people that think I'm an undercover
Agent of Chaos.
PlayStation, Agent of Chaos. And my brother was like, "What should we name the account?" And I was like, Randall Thor, because he's the main character from my favorite book series, The Wheel of Time. And he was like, "Okay, so Randall Thor," but it was taken already.
Yeah.
And then my brother was like, I was just like, "Well, just put a number at the end." So he threw in his birth date, which was the 19th. And here we are, a decision I made in 2004. Who knew it would have the far-reaching consequences of like eventually being, oh, that's what I'm known as, and that's what my YouTube channel is, and all this other sort of stuff. You never know how this stuff.
You never know, because for me that was like mid 2002.
Yeah, it's like 2004. It was like, here we are,
playing Revolt.
20 years later. It's ridiculous.
I know, it's crazy.
But anyways, thank you guys for tuning in. We'll be back on Friday with an Xbox 2. I don't know what we'll talk about because nothing's going on this week, it seems. But either way, the show has to go on. But thank you guys, and we'll see you on Friday. Later.
Take care, everybody.